Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. As you may or may not know, I'm a subscriber to many channels in the Young Turks network, and one channel that I'm still subscribed to, at least for now, is ThinkTank, usually hosted by John Ayarola and that other one. And my two favorite hosts in the TYT network are John Ayarola, he's usually pretty good, and Kim Horcher, who's also really good at what she does. Both of which, in my opinion, tend to be much better when it comes to their calmer, more logical, and more thought out presentations posted on the YouTube. But a few weeks ago, they presented a video on ThinkTank, on the ThinkTank channel, where they were listing 5 superheroines that they believe deserve their own film adaptations in the wake of the successful WonderWoman film. And unfortunately, their list was a tad disappointing. One reason it was a disappointing list was for the exclusion of a major superheroine in the Marvel Universe. And that superheroine is Storm. So, I'm going to break it down. So, some heads up. The video in question that I'm responding to is titled, and I quote, 5 superheroines who deserve movies after Wonder Woman, unquote. And this video was posted on ThinkTank channel about, 3 weeks ago? And in this video, John and Kim, like I was saying, were speaking about the awesomeness of the Wonder Woman film. And they both devised a list of 5 superheroines that they both felt should get their own film adaptations. And to be blunt, their list kind of sucked. Just to make it easy on my subscribers, here's the list. Number 1 on their list was Black Widow. And I actually do think this was the one good one on the list. I think this would actually be an interesting film to follow how she transitioned. When you consider Natasha's, and that's her real name, Natasha was an assassin when she was younger, a sniper, a secret agent, and she has that secret agent background from Russia, and all the other things that went on with her, basically her origin story and how she progressed all the way up to meeting with the Avengers and joining them. That might actually work really well, especially in the hands of a good screenwriter. But a lot of that still would hang on a lot of her interactions with the other Avengers. But I think that actually might work. That might be good. The second one that was on their list was Jean Grey. And she actually is very powerful, but as a character, she still doesn't really do anything for me. I mean, her telekinetic power is nice, and her telepathy is really good, and the whole storyline behind how she got those unlocked by Professor Xavier. But I don't feel her like that as a character. I don't think her storyline would be that interesting enough to hold together for an entire film on its own. Or it feels like the film could be produced, it could be worked out, but it would end up being filled with her, or it would be a very loud, energetic, kind of love triangle chick flick type of thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go into the storyline, follow the comics, and see what happens between her, Cyclops, and apparently Wolverine, which again already sounds too chick flicky to me. Or they will make her overly powerful and still somehow boring. If someone were to get her into, like, when she was in her White Phoenix angle, maybe I'm not sure that would actually work, so I don't know. But that's just my guess. Number 3 on their list was She-Hulk for some reason. And I gotta admit, that's not doing anything for me either. Let me break down a couple things about her. In terms of She-Hulk, A, I never really followed her character that well. And B, from the little bit that I have seen about her character, there's not enough of a storyline. It's like I don't see it. Like, I'd rather a future superheroine film focus on a heroine that was her own character, not the lover or the relative of a male character. I feel like that's too diminishing. In fact, if I remember correctly, she doesn't even become She-Hulk until well after Bruce Banner does. In fact, he's the main reason why she became She-Hulk, if you go back and follow the storyline. The little bit that I remember. So that entire premise wouldn't even be much of a superheroine film. That still would feel like just another Hulk film. Many of which were not as good as the other Marvel films, but that's a whole other issue. As far as I'm concerned, that would feel like a Hulk and his cousin film. It wouldn't feel like a heroine film at all. So, or rather a superheroine film, let me say that. But I wouldn't be feeling it as a superheroine film. I would be definitely getting the vibe of it's a Hulk film featuring his cousin. By the way, as far as the Wonder Woman film, I do love the fact that the Wonder Woman film focuses on Diana a long time before she joins the Justice League. So when you watch it, you watch her on her own, not just as a team member, but as an awesome independent character on her own. So as far as going with a She-Hulk movie, I think that would be going slightly backwards in terms of producing a superheroine movie. So, number 4 on their list was Rogue. In my opinion, would actually be, I guess, okay, but it wouldn't be okay enough for a theatrical release. Too much angsty teen drama will be in there. Again, too much romantic stuff thrown in. I'm getting really sick and tired of all this romance being thrown into action films. It's getting kind of annoying. And other stuff that runs the risk of being an action-filled chick flick. It still could work, but I don't think it'll work on the big screen, though. Maybe straight to DVD, but not on the big screen. So just not good enough for the big screen, in my opinion. Rogue is cool, but not enough for like her own storyline like that. Nah. Not worth the investment from a major movie studio. The 5th one on their list was X-23. And to me, X-23 would be either kind of predictable, another extension of the already overdone and overexposed Wolverine series, or a little bit of both. Like I said before, again, if we're going to have more superheroine films coming out, these projects would have a similar problem to a She-Hulk film. Or this project would have a similar problem to a She-Hulk film. In that the female character's presence would end up depending way too much on the male character's presence. A She-Hulk film would not feel like a She-Hulk film. It would feel like a Hulk film with his cousin featured. X-23, same thing. An X-23 film would not feel like an X-23 film. It would end up being a Wolverine film featuring his cloned daughter. So it's just, I need these to be more independent, is basically what I'm saying. Instead of them riding on the coattails of previous already established and well-liked male characters. The smartest thing to do is to focus on female heroines, who are their own characters. They can't just be the relative or the love interest of a male hero, which will come across as a tad regressive compared to the successful Wonder Woman film. But that's not the main thing I want to focus on. The main thing I want to focus on is why I think a movie about Storm is long overdue and why she is actually the most deserving of the next film being a film about a superheroine. Way more deserving than these top 5 that they listed, and to me, pretty much almost as deserving as Wonder Woman. So let's break it down. So here it is. 5 reasons why Storm from X-Men should have her own film by now, at least in my opinion. Aurora Munro needs her own film as soon as possible, and I feel she's more deserving of her own film than most of the women on John and Kim's list. Here's why. Reason number 1. Storm is a triple threat in terms of breaking down what some consider to be barriers in terms of heroes that we see on the big screen. 3 things. A. Storm is obviously a woman. B. She's black. In fact, even better, she's black African. C. She's the daughter of a native princess from an African country, an East African country, Kenya. So, again, black, female, and the direct offspring of East African royalty. Someone explain to me how that's not going to kick ass as a film story, as a good character that you can put on the big screen. How's that not going to be awesome? Reason number 2. While she was living in the Great Plains of East Africa, she was actually worshipped as a rain goddess because of her awakening mutant abilities. So not only is she actually royalty by blood, but she was worshipped as a goddess, as a rain goddess, for a time after she brought rain to a drought-stricken people where she was living. They mistaked her for a goddess. That's pretty beastly. Reason number 3. Storm not only was one of the main characters that freed the captured X-Men from Magneto in one of the older storylines, she ends up being second in command after Professor Xavier. This is not too long after she joins the X-Men. She had already gotten formal combat training from one of her mentors and caretakers when she was young, Ahmed El-Jibar, and hadn't met many of the mutants like Wolverine yet. So she already had so much formal training, so much skills that she learned from childhood long before even joining the X-Men. And then when she joins the X-Men, she gets even more training from people like Professor Xavier and Wolverine. So it's awesomeness stacked on top of awesomeness. She's awesome before she joins them and gets even better after she becomes an official member. So there you go. Reason number 4. Like I stated earlier, if we were to have a string of superheroine films, one very smart move is to write a storyline following a heroine who becomes strong on her own. She develops abilities and skills long before she gets into a relationship or joins on a team. Storm is perfect for this. She's an expert thief, was taught at a young age certain martial arts skills, nearly died trekking across the Sahara and down through along East Africa, saves the village from drought with her just recently awakened mutant powers at the time, and at no point is anyone ever really helping her. She's doing this pretty much all by herself. She has brief run-ins with Professor Xavier and T'Challa, her future husband, who later becomes Black Panther. But yeah, she didn't depend on either of them to survive that long journey, nor did she need them to save that one village from drought. That was pretty much her on her own, surviving and helping others even before she joins them. It was pretty much all her. Not her cousin, not some clone or something like that, not some family member, not a relative, not her lover. It was nobody else except her. She actually epitomizes the imagery and the symbolism of the strong female character. She can carry her own weight. Too many of the other characters that were listed, they have too many ties, too many connections to other characters that are much older than them and have a much larger following than them. She truly is more independent when you look at her storyline. Reason number 5. Seeing a much fuller, more awesome manifestation of her powers on screen, I think would be awesome. If it were done right. Because here's the thing I noticed about the difference between Marvel and DC. It definitely does seem like Marvel characters are not as overpowered. At least it seems like it to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I see. They seem like they're a little bit more powered down a bit. So I can see Marvel Studios playing with the effects of Storm's powers in a way that will seem epic, but not overpowered and not overly done, like say with the Superman films. They were okay, but there are some times where that seems like it's a little bit overdone, it's a little bit too jarring, too intense. With this, I don't think that'll happen as bad. I don't think that'll be as much of a problem in the Marvel universe as it is in the DC universe. So seeing her manifest rain, thunder, lightning, clouds, heavy winds to defeat an enemy, I think this is the type of special effects that is, if it's done right, could make for some awesome scenes throughout the movie if the movie is ever created. Scenes that are way more awesome than Wolverine's overused claws. But that's just my opinion. So yes, seeing a mutant mistaken for an African weather goddess would be beastly as hell, and I would love to see that movie if it's ever created. Definitely love to see that. And here's a bonus. Bonus reason. So bonus reason number 6. She's one of the strongest mutants in the entire X-Men franchise. Male or female. She's one of the most powerful ones. Up there with Professor X and Magneto. She's definitely a powerhouse. Jean Grey is also very powerful, but like I said before, Storm's entire storyline is much more interesting and well written. And Storm doesn't have as much of that annoying romantic stuff going on through her progression from childhood into adulthood into a member of the X-Men. Jean Grey's storyline, from what I've seen and remember from my childhood when I watched the cartoons, when I watched the animated series when I was younger, none of the heroines in the Marvel Universe really come close to Storm's awesomeness when you really look carefully at their characterization. Again, really, all this awesomeness with Storm, and you're going to pick She-Hulk or Rogue. And throughout the video, you didn't mention Storm. Really? Like, really, what the fuck was that? To me, she should have been the first one on the list. She should be the obvious number one. Before Black Widow and Jean Grey and all the other ones, she should have been number one on the list. Why she wasn't, I'm not sure. But that was just weird and disappointing. So let me break some facts down again so you have a clear understanding as you're listening to this. Storm, Aurora Monroe of the X-Men, has royal blood, is freakishly powerful, was taught in hand-to-hand combat, both before and after joining the X-Men. She survived crossing the Sahara Desert, was worshipped and mistaken for a goddess, worshipped by these people as a goddess because she basically saved them from near starvation. Saved people's lives before and after joining the X-Men, although some of the times that she did do that, it did have a slight problem ruining the crops of other people far away, but that was before she had a greater understanding of her power. So it was a mistake, yeah, but she still meant to do something good even before joining them. And she completed all these feats of awesomeness without having to be connected with an already established male character. She didn't have to have a lover. She didn't have to have a clone or whatever. She wasn't a clone of anybody. She wasn't related to anybody that was already an X-Men. She was her own incredibly powerful mutant superheroine. She was her own strong, independent, awesome character. She formed strong bonds with her male characters after she gained a decent amount of control over her abilities. After. Again, she gained all that before connecting with anybody. That's very important. Very much like how WonderWoman in DC gained so much prowess, gained so much intelligence and strength and control and conditioning and understanding of who she was and what she had to do with her powers, with her abilities before she joined the Justice League. Storm, to me, is very much parallel in that. In fact, I would honestly argue this. I would argue that Storm is to Marvel is as WonderWoman is to DC. I think you can make that parallel. I would. That's how beastly Storm is, in my opinion. She's also a female character in X-Men who stands the greatest chance of being in a good film, regardless of the success of prior Marvel films. The problem with the others chosen on John and Kim's list is that, except for Black Widow, all of them are going to need male characters, prior storylines, and success of prior films to help push them as a successful film. And again, that feels a little bit diminishing. A Storm film might not need that at all. It might be successful on its own regardless of the success of other Marvel films. Especially if you get a good screenwriter and good directors to work with that storyline when they produce it, if they ever produce it. So how she gets passed up for a film production so many times for so many decades, in my opinion, is a crime. So the next superheroine film that should be made, in my opinion, should follow the same characteristics as the WonderWoman film. It must not. No, actually, no, I take that back. It must stand on its own. The heroine must stand on her own. It needs to be independently just showing who that character is and how she grows as a person. Not being connected with all these other characters like these other choices in their list. There's not very good list that Kim and John made. Now, a few more things. Why a Storm film might not ever get made. Because many people point out that Storm is a little too powerful if you really put her in her true incarnation. So if they were to make a film with her at the center of it, the storyline focused on her, they would have to dial down her power to an extent as to not overwhelm the audience with the insanely amped up action sequences. Something that can be done, but it's got to be done in a particular way. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit risky, and it could come out pretty bad if it's not done right by a studio. B, with a Storm film, and this is really irritating, but it's the truth. We gotta be honest about this. Its gifts may also be its curse. What makes a Storm film unique would also be a bit of a detriment in terms of being produced and being marketed. What makes Storm unique is her femininity, her Africanness, and her true actual independence of male assistance as she ascends to become a member of the X-Men. As awesome as they are, these things might alienate a large portion of the science fiction / comic book community. Considering most people who are into this genre are not black, and a majority are not female, let alone African. So it makes sense, unfortunately, for studios to be a bit wary of making a film about her. This is overbearingly annoying, this overbearingly sucks, but the demographics don't lie. Studios have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars producing superhero films, and they have to make very tight budget, very intense and intelligent decisions in order to get a return on their investment. It's annoying as hell, but it is what it is. But don't lose hope yet. There is a silver lining. Why a Storm film could be made. It could still happen. I would love for it to happen. There's a reason why it might happen. That's actually coming up pretty soon in the next year or so. The main thing that might really help a Storm film get produced is the upcoming Black Panther film. And it's coming out, I want to say like March of 2018, somewhere around there. If Black Panther does well, then that might motivate some studio execs to go ahead and greenlight a film for Storm. She is the wife of Black Panther after all. So this could be an extremely good chance to have a Storm film happen within the next couple of years. Maybe 2020, 2020 something, who knows. The only problem I have with this is that it will then run the same risk as many other superheroine films, in that it may ride on the coattails of the Black Panther film in terms of the storyline. And she might end up feeling like less of her own character to the audience that's watching it. But just like with the recent WonderWoman film, here's another silver lining in the end of the Storm. A Storm film at the point has a chance of... Hold on, let me see. I'm getting confused now. A Storm film at this point has a chance closer than ever before to be a strong superheroine film for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if casted right, written well, directed and edited well. And that can still happen regardless of how good the Black Panther film does. Again, the Wonder Woman film so far is one of the best films that came out from DC, despite the bad reviews and bad ratings of the previous films in the DC universe. Marvel easily could do the same thing, especially considering they had a better run than DC over the past decade. So, whether the Panther film does good or not, it can still happen. And it has even greater chance of happening if the Black Panther film does do well when it drops next year. So, until then, for now, we'll have to wait and see. So in conclusion, I generally enjoy when John and Kim are on screen. Most of their videos are actually pretty awesome, whether they're by themselves or with each other. Although when they're with each other, that's some of the best content they produce, in my opinion. But as far as this particular video, it was kind of a disappointment and it only felt right for me to respond to it and share my thought process on their poor choices. Share my ideas on my choices as to who should be the next superheroine film on the big screen and the reasons why. Still my two favorite TYT hosts, but I did have to get that off my chest. And that's it for now, I think. So, to all my subscribers, please leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this subject. Please subscribe, like, share, and donate through the PayPal button or the Patreon link to support my channel and the content that I produce. Until the next video, have a good night. Hope you enjoy your Independence Day. I'm out. Peace.